Hello, Raleigh. This is Whitney for Raleigh. I want to talk to you about law enforcement in Raleigh. There's an op-ed piece written in the News and Observer by Smedes York, and for those of you who don't know him, uh, he's been one of the York families, big in the building industry here in Raleigh. But Smedes York was mayor back, I think, '79, back in that era, and has some things to say about law enforcement here with regards to our city council. The article starts off with this: Raleigh's new mayor and city council, sworn in Monday, face an unexpected and defining leadership challenge, with police chief Estella D. Patterson announcing she will retire in March. Our elected officials have a crucial opportunity to lead out of the gate by prioritizing public safety. Raleigh's voters in every council, district, neighborhood, and business area overwhelmingly elected candidates committed to public safety. They expect their new council to deliver. Well, first of all, when I ran this last time and wasn't successful, but I did knock on 1,500 doors. And in talking to Raleigh citizens, I would say that law enforcement was either one or two up there on on the rank. And of course, it's typically people who have had a crime situation, or they've called a police officer and I'm sorry, someone can't get right out there. It's going to be 20, 30, 40 minutes. If you haven't been in that type of situation, you may not realize that we've really got a shortage of law enforcement in Raleigh. So not everyone realizes that, but at large, people have been noticing that the crime rate has been slowly escalating through the years to where now it's gotten to be a serious situation in Raleigh. I'm going to read down here a little bit. Despite Raleigh's successes and accolades, recent city councils have not adequately focused on their most important job, keeping citizens safe. As a result, crime is on the rise. In the first 6 months of 2024, Raleigh saw several crimes reach 10-year highs, including assault, motor vehicle theft, and weapons violations. Homicides are up 78% during the same period. Folks, after a while, the criminals figure out that there's low-hanging fruit, and the word gets out, and the crime rate rises. And that's what we've seen happen in Raleigh. Now, I'm just going to make a few comments about when I ran. I was in a lot of forums. Housing, big issue. I'd say with voters, housing was number one as far as where people's attention were, because you can see that when you're out and the homeless out on the streets and tent cities, and people know people who are homeless. And so that was, they see the escalating rents, and people understood that was a big problem in Raleigh. Not everyone necessarily understands that with the law enforcement, because they're not necessarily directly affected, and you don't always see it until you get your car broken into. But I was in a lot of forums running for city council, and I can tell you this was not talked about hardly at all in any of these forums. The questions just weren't brought up to the candidates. And when it was, a couple of the forums that I was brought in didn't talk about crime. They talked about defunding the police department, that we need to put more money into social programs and take it out of the police department. And in fact, there's a movement in Raleigh, Refund Raleigh. You can go look up the website. I assume it's still up there, that endorses doing that. And I'm talking about forums that I was in. This actually was brought up as a key position with the people putting on the forums. And we were arguing from a position of whether or not we ought to be taking money out of the police department. Now, that's not the mainstream belief in Raleigh, but here's what you got to realize. The people who are active and screaming, quite frequently shape the political landscape. And we do have that political element in Raleigh. So we haven't increased the police department in 25 years, and crime has been going up. And Raleigh has doubled in size with population. I don't know how much the area has increased, but the area of the city has increased significantly. So we'll read further down in the article. As a result, our per capita public safety staff and police pay lag our peer cities considerably. Raleigh's population grew 13% in 2004, but the city added 3% more police department staff compared to a 20% surge in other city positions. Well, I'd argue that really our police staff hasn't increased. Maybe the office has, but I would argue we hadn't even been for some time at the budgeted 850. We were down below 700 back when I was running, and we just had a class graduate, I think, fairly recently here, and we're probably up above 700. But in my opinion, we ought to be up at least 1,200 police. I mean, for the fact that the city's doubled in size since those numbers were set back in those days. The public census situation, more than half of the Raleigh voters this year feared crime would intensify in their neighborhoods, and almost three-fourths expect it to worsen downtown, an April survey found. Fully two-thirds of the city voters rated crime as very important. They're right. Our newly expected city council must step up to support our police officers and other public safety personnel, making sure they have the staffing, training, and equipment and resources necessary to serve the public effectively. Now, here's the thing. Everyone knows our police officers are the lowest paid in Wake County. In this article, he points out that our police officers make 20% of what the police officers do in Charlotte. And so what we need to do is to get our pay up. I think that's going to happen. I've talked to the candidate who I was running against, Mitchell Silver, the other day. He told me he was committed to getting the salaries up to where they need to be so that Raleigh Police Department is competitive. So that's one guy. But if we look at the city council makeup here, there's 8 seats, the mayor being one of those seats, and only 2 of them were switched out. And the previous city council really showed no desire to do a whole lot other than give our police department, I think it was a 5% raise in the 2 years that they were in. So my hope is with the leadership with Janet Cowell, that she will be pushing for this to get the pay up. And Mitchell Silver has told me that he's committed to do that. And so I hope that the other city council members are going to get on board to raise the pay. But that's only half of it. We need to get our numbers of police officers up to where it needs to be so that we have enough police officers to do the job. I can tell you this, that my understanding is that these guys are typically 2 and 3 deep in calls, that people make calls and can't get police officers out there in a timely fashion. Now, the previous police chief, Ms. Patterson, or Police Chief Patterson, had made great strides with this. One of the things that they did do was get this volunteer force out so that if you had an accident, you could get a policeman out there or get someone out there to file a report, an accident report. And they picked up the slack on some of these things that, you know, were the type of jobs that you didn't really have to have a full-fledged police officer in, and they could take care of those things. That obviously was helpful. But when people are overworked, they tend to make mistakes. And police work is extremely stressful. When we have a police officer come out in a dangerous situation, we want these guys at the top of their game. And when they're overworked, it just increases the chances of having something wrong happen. And also, too, we're not keeping our best guys when our pay is not competitive. We pay money to train these guys over 3 years, and then they go over and work in Cary or Apex or one of these other municipalities because they're not making enough money. And the job is too stressful. So those are just some of my opinions on this, and I agree with Smedes York on this on his article. And yeah, I'll just read here sort of the wrap on this. Our new city council has a clear mandate from voters across Raleigh. I urge them to embrace this change and take firm, undaunted action to make the city we all love safer, more secure, and stronger for everyone. After all, that's job one. So I appreciate previous Mayor Smedes York writing this article. I think it's a great article. You might look for it. It's in the News and Observer. And you've got my opinion on this. I ran on this, and I hope that the current city council is going to take note on this and understand that this is a priority to get this job done. This is Whitney for Raleigh signing off. I appreciate you listening to this video.